Last week, I had the great pleasure to meet Sarah Small while she's on her UK tour. She's cycling around the UK with the viol strapped on her back. She started from the south, coming up the east coast, and then is now currently in the Outer Hebrides before cycling back down the west coast. While she was in Edinburgh, she was kind enough to stop by for a little chat. So we talked about becoming a historically informed musician, being a musician during COVID, our instruments, as well as sustainability and touring, being a classical musician. I hope you enjoy this little chat. And we also have a couple of little clips from the performance. And if you like what you hear, we're also going to be playing again back at the pianodrome in Edinburgh in the Granton Warehouse on the 25th of June. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. How did you start with music and the viol? So, like, what first got you interested in music? Like, your first kind of instrument or thing?
My first instrument was the recorder, like for most people,
Yeah.
and I just had a brilliant recorder teacher who inspired me to just pursue it beyond the kind of normal primary school level that a lot of people reach. And then when it came to choosing to go to university or do something else, I thought, well, I'm quite good at playing the recorder, so I might as well go and study that. Went to the RCM in London, and then when I was there, somebody came and played a viola da gamba in one of our faculty classes, and I just heard one chord and I thought, that's the instrument for me, that's much cooler than the recorder. And I just had to play it, and I took one away over the summer, practiced, started with the viol consort, and yeah, the rest is kind of history, I guess. Studied it for bachelor's and masters, and yeah, now it's an
All the
instrument.
way. Yeah. So, I mean, that was really interesting that you started on the recorder. How did you find that switch from going from wind to viol?
Sorry, I also dabbled in a bit of viola.
Oh, viola as
So
well.
that
Oh,
helped,
okay,
but I was terrible. And yeah, the frets make it a lot easier to start, and just I really wanted to play, so practiced hard enough, and then yeah, you get there
Yeah,
in the
no, it's
end.
just hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
All
Yeah.
the way through. And then, so, did you switch, like, in your degree?
So
Or did you just kind of, like, dabble and then did you finish your recorder studies
yeah,
and then
so
go to viol?
it would have been halfway through undergrad. I started playing in consort with lots of other historical studies students. We do it just for fun, and then I was allowed to do it as joint principal study for my final year. So then I graduated on both recorder and gamba, and then I went to do my masters just on gamba.
Okay. And going back to your school, what were your kind of musical experiences like at school? Did you play in recorder and consorts or in other groups? Or was that what the viola was for? To try and
Yeah, I
pick
played viola in the school orchestra, and like the county youth orchestra and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Recorder, there was a recorder ensemble. Yeah, and there was also one outside of school that's still going today in Northamptonshire called the Nen Consort, and
It's a good name.
yeah,
Strong name.
yeah,
I think, yeah.
and played in that weekly, lots of Holborn and things like that, and then yeah, I don't know why I felt the pull to do, to pursue it further, because it's not really a natural choice maybe with the recorder, but
Yeah, no.
it led me to the gamba, so I'm happy.
And when you were playing the recorder, did you have a kind of feeling of what the repertoire, did you feel drawn to a kind of earlier repertoire and maybe that kind of influenced your choice of the viol, or was it more just like the sound of the
No,
viol?
so I was when I started at music college, a lot of the music was completely new to me, and I just felt like everybody else knew a lot more about the history of the instrument and everything, and I just I liked playing what I played, and it was like this whole new world, and I just thought, this is amazing that we get to effectively, like, we don't have to do classes that had no, like, I was interested in everything, and so we got to practice every day, we got to rehearse like new music every day, and that was exciting in itself. And then so it was all like discovery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh no, that's great. I mean, so would that be how you kind of sum up your kind of RCM experience as a kind of like a discovery
Yeah.
of a well, yeah.
Yeah.
And overall that like you found the RCM good?
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot of
Yeah.
but yeah.
I mean, to give me that
That's great.
opportunity and to switch and be able to like start a new instrument and then leave at a level that a lot of people start an instrument at like the age of, I don't know, 6 or something, and then do that all the way through. It shows that they obviously have, like, they invest a lot in you as well, so it was a bit of a gamble, but got there.
No, that was great. I mean, I think that's a experience that lots of like kind of historical instruments instrumentalists have, of like, you start again. I think I started again, I was like 24 or something, and have to work your way up, and you're like, oh, I should be better better by now.
It's challenging because you're at a certain level at something else, and you just think, why am I not there on this thing? And you just gotta,
but you can't will it into existence.
No, exactly.
Either, like, it still requires the same amount of work. So then, was your master's also at the RCM, or was that when you moved to Bremen?
So I went to Bremen. I intended to finish my master's there, but I spent the 2 years of study there, and then didn't finish. I just decided that I wanted to come back to London and study with Reiko, who was my teacher at RCM, and that's where I did my master's, and actually got the certificate for it. Okay, so I studied with Hilla in Bremen, and she was a great teacher, and then just came back.
Came back, and so you finished with the RCM. Mm-hmm. You got the actual sheet of paper. Which is, I think it's unfortunate how important that sheet of paper is. And then what did you go to do after that?
So that was in 2020. So my final recital that year was terribly sad. I played all solo music, and there were 3 people in the room, the panel in the spread out, and it was a room that had absolutely, the acoustic was so dry. And then did my recital, walked out, and thought, well, that's the end of study. There were very few performance opportunities, so I went and worked for Royal Mail for 18 months instead.
Oh, what, was that as a postman?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I mean, that was the case at the time, wasn't it? There wasn't viol work.
No.
Certainly wasn't much flute work either. How did you find being a postwoman?
I loved being outside at a time when we weren't really allowed out, and the connection with people who were quite isolated and all of those things were great. To be moving, my colleagues were wonderful, but it's one of those jobs that obviously there's variation because you don't know what you're doing every day and you're on different routes, but it's the same thing over and over again. And there's something about music that is a lot more, the creative side of music, I missed that a lot. I did enjoy that. It was very different, but
I mean, it's not fulfilling the same
not at all.
Needs. It's very
you kind of walk in the streets just like, what am I doing with my life? That's not really I thought I'd feel more fulfilled helping people, but you're delivering a lot of things like fast fashion that people are just ordering because they've got nothing else to do, and that's taken priority over important medical documents and stuff. And I was seeing that from that side, and I was just like, I'm not helping the greater good. So
tell us a bit about this tour and the ideas behind it. So firstly, how are you getting about on your tour?
So I'm cycling between venues with my gamba strapped to my bike and everything I need on that, including my accommodation, my tent, my kitchen, my office, and all my clothes and music stand and just everything I need. Yeah.
It does sound like a very impressive bike. To have everything. But that's amazing. And then and why are you choosing to go around this way?
It's mainly because, music, as we all know, has that power to communicate things that we can't always find words to express. And one of the things that I struggle to talk about are challenging subjects, including the climate crisis and our impact, and one of the ways in which we're impacting one of the ways in which we're negatively impacting the environment is the way in which we travel as musicians. And it's hard to talk about, but I thought playing about it is one way to perhaps address the issue. So by combining cycling between venues and performing in that way, performing programs that are inspired by the natural world, the unstable weather events and the connection with nature. It is more, it's like demonstrating a greener way to tour. I'm not suggesting everybody gets on bikes and tours that way, but highlighting the journey as much as the destination, the in-between venues, the in-between communities, and showing the value in performing in those places to us as performers, but also to the people there. And travelling by bike, you're at that perfect, it's like the Goldilocks speed. You see things, but you're still making good progress. And it connects you with the natural world. And so by sharing the journey, I hope that it'll make people sit up and pay attention, reconsider the way in which they travel, and perhaps by some of the things that I'm showing, they will care more, because you don't necessarily see them when you're rushing through. And if people care about something, then they're more likely to change. So those are just some of the many, many reasons for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly a great reason to do it, and I think it's something I've been thinking about recently, of the kind of classical musical industry, and then sustainability, and they don't exactly go together, because I mean the model is basically if you're like you're a soloist and you fly around the world, probably multiple times a week, depending on what you're doing, or for something like early music, you sell something. You do something very specialized, and then you sell that to lots of places. How do you think, for obviously with the climate crisis, the world will have to change? What do you imagine like a sustainable kind of classical musical instrument to be like? Like, what would be your ideal?
So,
do you think?
Some of the biggest problems are the way in which we continue to, say, fly back and forth to a different country within 24 hours for one concert. And the justification for that is that the plane tickets cost a fraction of the price of the train tickets to the same destination. Obviously, the train, it can take longer, but when you factor in the journey to and from an airport and the waiting around when you get there, it's not always a slower journey. And so if there was the financial support for greener alternatives, then I think more musicians would choose it. So that would be one shift. Another is making the most of a destination when you're there, so you're not arriving jet lagged and like knowing that in a few hours after the gig you've got to leave again. You're actually fully present and can communicate something meaningful. Jake Herringman and Susanna Pell, they're both flight-free musicians, and they joined me for one of my performances recently and spoke about this, that feeling of being fully present in a place. And I think that's so important for the performance. But unfortunately, so many things, it's short-sighted because it comes down to the financials in that moment versus the long-term implications on the environment. So until there is the support there for flight-free touring, ideally, you can pay for carbon offsets, but it doesn't really work. And it just needs to be almost stigmatized that it's still the norm, and it shouldn't be, but we don't talk about it, yet a lot of people are concerned about it. Like, I get messages from musicians who say, I've just been asked to do a gig in, I don't know, Spain, and I asked if I could travel by train, but they told me that they'll cover the flight but not the train fare, and so I need to pay the difference. What do you suggest? And it's like everyone, or a lot of people, are interested in finding alternatives, but we're not having the open discussion that enable them to actually be viable financially. If that answers the question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it just comes down generally to money. Of this, and when you're trying to balance a budget, in that short term view, it's always easier to go, I guess there's two kind of things. One, there's, in the UK at least, there's infrastructure issues.
Oh, definitely.
Because I just on Saturday I was going to take the train down to London to buy a new lute, and it got cancelled, and then I just had to jack in the whole trip, and luckily I managed to get it all sorted and delivered to somewhere. But you're thinking, if I had a concert that day that I was doing, I would have been completely screwed, and that would have been it. I mean, obviously in that situation I would have probably done the travel differently.
That's a valid
but
point.
there is a reliability. But then, yeah, the planes are just so excessive. I think what you said about the meaningful projects,
Yeah.
I think is a really good is an important way to think about it.
Yeah.
Because that means automatically you're investing so much more of yourself and the music. So I think coming back to the viol as well. So we're historically informed performers. So for those in the know, that will talk about a lot of using gut and things. But your viol's pretty special.
Yep.
Actually, can you tell us a little bit about your strings that you're using?
Yeah. So
and everything.
I have these. They're called the F series strings from Aquila, and they're made out of sugarcane wrapped in cotton on the top set of strings and copper on the bottom. And they I think were originally developed to provide affordable strings for people who lived in humid climates, so they weren't just spending a fortune on replacing gut, because as we know, gut just doesn't last. But I'm using them because they're incredibly resilient, which is useful when they're strapped to the back of a bike on a 4,000 kilometre tour. But also they're not made of animals, which means a lot to me being a long-term vegan. I felt like a massive hypocrite playing on gut, and like it was such an issue for me that I contemplated just packing up being a gamba player for that reason. So yeah, delighted that these strings actually work, because it's been so hard to find a synthetic alternative that you can bow and makes a nice sound. So I hope that by using these strings as well and showing them to people, then more and more people will actually like maybe make the transition, because it's less of a risk when they've heard somebody else play it. They know that it's worth it. Because for me, I bought a new set and I thought, I have no idea what these are going to sound like. It could have just been a massive investment in something that is awful, but luckily not.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so those are made by Aquila, aren't they?
Yeah.
So any viol players and get those
Mm-hmm.
Aquila strings. Aquila, if you're watching,
Yeah.
you can pay me some money. That'd be great.
But they
you.
sent me a set when I told them what I was doing, so I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, because you don't need to replace them anywhere near as often as gut, but it's good to have the backup.
No, that was great. So where are you going? So firstly, where have you been on your tour, and then where are you going next?
Yeah, good question. I started in Northamptonshire about 3 weeks ago today. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
My 3-week anniversary.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah, and I've got about 9 more to go.
Yeah.
Bonkers. Yeah, and then performed in Cambridge, Aldborough, Overstrand, and then came up the Lincolnshire coast recently in Flamborough, where I went to Flamborough Head to see the puffins and seals, which was amazing. And then Durham, and where else did I go? Yeah, continued northwards, and now we're in Edinburgh, the pianodrome, and next will be Oban, before I go off to the Outer Hebrides in a few days' time.
Oh, that'd be very exciting. And
Yeah,
obviously,
so
on the Hebrides, you will be taking the boat. Not
yeah.
swimming. Is that going to be the only kind of field transport that you'll be taking on the journey?
Yeah. And my justification for that is that it's the main way in which the locals and essential services get to and from the islands.
I mean, there's
so
no
I'm just
other
an
way
extra
to do
passenger.
it.
Yeah,
Exactly. Those will be going anyway.
Yeah. So it's not
exactly. Well, hopefully they'll be going.
I hope so, but I've
I
factored in
so.
some wiggle room just in case the weather is atrocious and delays it. Yeah.
Great. And then just to finish off with, what once your tour is finished, do you have any plans of what you'll be doing, or is this the kind of the opening of new beginnings on the tour?
So I've got a few concerts in and around London and Oxford for a few weeks after, and then I've booked a one-way ticket on the Saillink ferry. Check it out, it's great. It's this catamaran sailing boat that takes, I think, about 8 passengers and bikes over the channel from Dover to Calais, And yeah, I booked a one-way ticket to go and visit a violinist friend in Rennes in France, and hopefully play together there. And I don't quite know where I'll go after that. So an adventure overseas.
No, but that'll be very exciting. But I
Yeah.
think that's the beginning of another bike tour. Rennes.
Yeah, Rennes and then
I
around
don't
the
know.
world.
Yeah, exactly. Rennes to Australia.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Cool, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.